I did not expect anything unusual when I first examined the Bradbury Building in Los Angeles, officially completed in 1893. The city records were clear: a commercial office building designed by George Wyman, featuring an ornate interior court with open-cage hydraulic elevators. What caught my attention was an 1894 photograph stored in the Los Angeles Public Library archive. It showed the elevator mechanism mid-maintenance, revealing a hydraulic piston system that descended far deeper than the building's documented basement. The system had no visible motor, no steam engine, no external power connection. A renovation note from 1914 mentions sealing of lower hydraulic chamber, original pressure system discontinued. On an 18th century atlas nearby, the Western Territories appeared within regions once labelled as part of Tartaria. Some researchers would later describe systems like these as remnants of Tartarian engineering, elevators that operated on principles we no longer understand. At first, I assumed coincidence. I kept looking anyway. The official narrative places the Bradbury Building within the tradition of late 19th century commercial architecture. George Wyman, a draftsman with limited formal training, designed the building after reportedly receiving guidance from a spiritualist seance, a detail that mainstream historians dismiss as colourful legend. The building's hydraulic elevators were celebrated as examples of period technology, powered by water pressure from the city mains. Period newspapers praised its novel transportation system and ingenious engineering. In the archive, I examined original blueprints dated 1892. The drawings clearly showed the elevator shafts and ornamental ironwork, but they ended abruptly at the basement floor. There was no documentation for the deep hydraulic chamber visible in the maintenance photographs. A maintenance photograph from 1895 contradicted the drawings. The chamber beneath the elevator pit revealed a pressure system extending nearly 20 feet below the documented basement, a void with precisely machined walls and conduits that connected to systems beyond the building's footprint. The engineering style was different from the ornamental Victorian work above, older in conception, more geometrically precise, mathematically uniform, in ways that exceeded period capabilities. Some alternative architectural historians classify such systems as Tartarian hydraulic infrastructure, repurposed during later construction as power sources for buildings the official records claim were independently engineered. Mainstream explanations describe standard water pressure elevators. Standard water pressure elevators, however, do not require chambers extending 20 feet below basement level. The sealed chamber appeared in only one photograph. Behind the visible elevator mechanism, a bricked overpassage suggested a connection to something deeper, a system that the official plans denied existed. The passage frame was too precisely cut for 1890s construction, each brick aligned to within fractions of millimeters across the span. A renovation permit from 1914 mentions permanent closure of lower hydraulic access, pressure source discontinued per building management directive. No reason was given. The chamber proportions troubled me. The hydraulic cylinder descended into a void measuring 2.4 meters in diameter, dimensions suited for industrial-scale pressure generation, not a 5-story commercial building. The cylinder walls followed precise geometric specifications that appeared intentional rather than functional necessity. Why engineer such precision into a basement chamber that would immediately be buried and forgotten? I measured the visible mechanism using photogrammetric analysis of the photograph. The cylinder was machined with tolerances that typically require modern industrial equipment, or methods we no longer understand. The chamber connected to something. The archive did not say what. Before continuing, I examined the broader pattern. Early hydraulic elevators worldwide show the same phenomenon. Sealed lower chambers, disconnected pressure systems, mechanisms extending far below documented basement levels. The official explanation is straightforward hydraulics, water pressure from city mains pushing pistons upward. Yet the chamber depths and precision visible in maintenance photographs consistently exceed what simple water pressure would require. Why would elevator builders systematically construct elaborate underground systems for machines that supposedly operated on municipal water? On 18th century maps, the regions containing these mysterious elevator systems appeared within or adjacent to territories labelled Tartaria or Great Tartary. Mainstream historians describe this as a cartographic convention that had vanished by the time these buildings were constructed. Alternative researchers argue the Tartarian label reflects a lost infrastructure culture whose engineering signatures remained visible in the hydraulic systems beneath Victorian-era buildings. I did not know which interpretation was correct, but the pattern, elevators with undocumented power chambers, designed with precision the official builders could not have achieved, was too consistent to dismiss. The chambers were older than the elevators, and the elevators were built as if the chambers were never meant to be found. I expanded my research to other early elevator installations. The Rookery Building in Chicago, completed in 1888, revealed similar anomalies. Maintenance photographs from 1903 show the hydraulic elevator mechanism descending into a chamber that engineers described as of uncertain depth, exceeding foundation specifications. The chamber displayed the same geometric precision, the same oversized proportions, the same sealed passages leading into systems beyond the building footprint. An engineer's report from 1904 reads, "Hydraulic system incorporates pre-existing underground works of considerable extent. Origin predates building construction. Pressure source undetermined." Pressure source undetermined. The 1888 builders did not create this system. They connected to it. The chambers beneath the Rookery Building matched those beneath the Bradbury Building. Identical geometric proportions, identical machining precision, identical sealed passages. Two buildings, separated by 5 years and 2,000 miles, sharing identical subterranean hydraulic architecture. The deeper I looked, the more I found unexplained power systems in unexpected places. The Guaranty Building in Buffalo, completed in 1896 by architects Louis Sullivan and Dankmar Adler, displays hydraulic elevator mechanisms that a 1920 survey describes as connected to underground pressure systems of unknown origin. The chambers were not simple piston housings. They contained valve networks and conduit systems that extended beyond the building boundaries. A restoration report from 1922 describes the chambers as of extraordinary workmanship, purpose exceeding documented elevator requirements. The metalwork was too precisely machined for 1890s methods. The chamber proportions matched the Los Angeles, Chicago, and Buffalo measurements exactly, the same dimensions, appearing beneath buildings founded years apart and separated by thousands of miles. Some Tartarian researchers identify such consistency as evidence of a unified hydraulic infrastructure, architectural DNA, from a civilization that predated the official building constructors. The official histories attribute the similarity to standardized elevator engineering. Standardized engineering, however, does not explain identical chamber specifications beneath buildings with no documented connection. I spent several evenings studying old maps, those that label vast regions as Tartaria, looking for correlations with mysterious elevator installations. The 1706 Guillaume Delisle map shows a continuous territory marked Grande Tartarie, stretching across Eurasia. The 1771 Encyclopaedia Britannica describes Tartary as the greatest empire on the face of the earth. By the mid-19th century, this designation had vanished from cartography. What remained were structures, buildings with hydraulic systems that operated on principles their documented builders could not explain. Comparing the elevator chamber patterns with the regions labelled Tartaria on old maps revealed unsettling parallels. The buildings with unexplained hydraulic systems appeared in Los Angeles, Chicago, Buffalo, New York, and cities across territories that 18th century cartographers had labelled as Tartarian, or adjacent to Tartarian regions. The distribution showed no respect for the boundaries that supposedly existed when these buildings were constructed. Alternative researchers call this Tartarian hydraulic infrastructure. I was beginning to understand why. The pattern was becoming impossible to dismiss as coincidence. These elevators were connected to older systems, and these systems shared identical engineering DNA. I began comparing elevator mechanisms systematically. In New York, the Flatiron Building, completed in 1902, incorporated hydraulic elevators that an engineering survey described as connected to pressure systems extending beyond building foundation. In Philadelphia, City Hall, completed in 1901, shows elevator chambers that architects noted were of uncertain origin, integrated into building design. In Boston, in St. Louis, in cities across the former American territories, the same pattern repeated. Major buildings with hydraulic elevator systems connected to chambers older than the buildings above them. Precision exceeding documented period capabilities. The engineering signatures, geometric cylinders, identical proportions, sealed passages, repeated across state boundaries, across supposed construction eras, across official narratives that claimed each building was independently engineered. The elevators operated smoothly. How they actually generated pressure remained undocumented. The most troubling discovery emerged when I examined the stated power sources for these elevators. Official records universally describe water pressure from city mains, municipal systems pushing hydraulic fluid through pistons to lift elevator cars. Yet the chamber depths and pressure specifications visible in maintenance photographs far exceeded what municipal water systems could provide. The mathematics did not support the official power source. A 1910 Engineering Journal article mentions the mystery of early hydraulic elevator efficiency, which exceeded calculated pressure availability. Exceeded calculated pressure. The phrase implied that the elevators were generating lift through means the engineers could not identify. Some Tartarian researchers argue these systems tapped into pre-existing pressure networks, infrastructure that predated municipal water systems and operated on principles we no longer understand. The official narrative describes straightforward hydraulic engineering. The engineering journals suggest something more complicated was at work beneath these buildings. Renovation records from 1900 to 1940 repeat the same phrases across cities worldwide. Original hydraulic system disconnected. Lower pressure chambers sealed. Elevator converted to electric traction. No diagrams survive for most sealed chambers. No photographs document what pressure systems were disconnected. The erasure was systematic, not a conspiracy, but a modernization pattern. Engineers encountered systems they could not explain, and the simplest solution was replacement with technology they understood. A 1925 elevator industry report describes the discovery of extensive underground pressure networks beneath multiple building sites of pre-construction origin and uncertain function. The chambers connected building foundations to systems that extended beneath city streets, forming what appeared to be unified pressure grids. The report recommended sealing all connections and converting to electric elevators. By 1950, most major buildings had disconnected from their original hydraulic systems entirely. The systems, whatever their purpose, were erased from operational history. Only the photographs remain, and the photographs show technology that the official timeline cannot explain. By now, I had identified a repeating pattern across dozens of buildings. Hydraulic chambers predating official construction, identical geometric proportions, machining precision exceeding period capabilities, and systematic disconnection during the early 20th century. The pattern appeared in Los Angeles, Chicago, Buffalo, New York, and cities across the former American territories. Alternative researchers call this the Tartarian elevator signature, evidence of a unified pressure infrastructure, built by a civilization that mainstream history does not acknowledge, then repurposed during the late 19th century as power sources for buildings and finally disconnected when their original function became incomprehensible. I cannot prove this theory, but I can document the pattern. Chambers older than the buildings above them, precision beyond period capabilities, systematic disconnection that severed access before anyone could fully investigate. The elevators still operate. How they originally generated pressure may have been sealed away decades ago. The most troubling observation was the consistency across supposed innovations. Buildings constructed in 1888, 1893, 1896 and 1902 all displayed the same hydraulic architecture, the same geometric signatures, the same evidence of pre-existing pressure systems incorporated into later construction. Either elevator engineers across 2 decades shared a hidden tradition that no document records, or they connected to something older, something already in place when they arrived. Some Tartarian researchers suggest these hydraulic chambers were part of a continental pressure network, infrastructure that generated lift through methods we no longer practice or understand. The official histories describe independent elevator innovations at multiple sites. But the chambers beneath these buildings, the identical dimensions, the matching proportions, the sealed passages, suggest something that does not fit this narrative of parallel innovation. The truth may lie somewhere between official history and alternative theory, or beneath the concrete that now seals these systems. I return to the Bradbury Building one final time. The original hydraulic elevators have been converted to electric operation, their lower chambers sealed and forgotten. A building engineer told me that maintenance workers occasionally encounter old metalwork during repairs, components that no blueprint acknowledges. "We don't investigate," he said. "We just work around them." The photograph from 1895 remains in the archive, a hydraulic chamber descending into darkness, its cylinder impossibly precise, its passages leading to systems that have since been disconnected and sealed. Whatever pressure source that mechanism originally tapped, whatever network it connected to, whatever civilization designed it, all remain buried beneath the basement floor. The Tartarian hypothesis offers one explanation. The official history offers silence. Neither fully accounts for what the photographs show. The investigation ends not with certainty, but with quiet reflection. In the archives, a final photograph lingers, the 1895 image of the hydraulic chamber beneath the Bradbury Building, its cylinder impossibly precise, its passage leading into sealed darkness. The official record says the building was completed in 1893. The photograph shows something older beneath it. The renovation logs describe disconnection, sealing, conversion to electric power. What those chambers contained was never documented. What connected to those pressure systems was never mapped. Across Los Angeles, across America, across regions once labeled Tartaria on 18th century maps, the same pattern repeats. Elevators with hydraulic chambers that predated their buildings, pressure systems disconnected during modernization, mechanisms sealed before anyone could determine their power source. The evidence does not prove a lost civilization existed, but it documents something the official histories cannot explain, a layer beneath the Victorian engineering, built with precision beyond documented capabilities, systematically disconnected when engineers could no longer comprehend how it worked. The chambers in the photograph remain sealed. Whatever truth those mechanisms held has been buried for over a century, and like much of what researchers call Tartarian infrastructure, it lingers as a trace rather than a conclusion, impossible to investigate, impossible to ignore. I return to the 1895 photograph one final time. The chamber is dark in the image, its purpose undocumented. The cylinder walls remain perfectly machined, too perfect for the 1890s, too precise for the tools. The building above was officially completed in 1893. The chamber beneath was sealed in 1914. In the century since that photograph was taken, no one has recorded what pressure system originally powered those elevators. The official history describes municipal water pressure. The photograph shows something deeper, something connected to other chambers beneath other buildings across a continent. Something built before the Victorian engineers ever arrived. And somewhere beneath the Bradbury Building, beneath the ornamental court that tourists photograph, the chamber waits, still sealed, still unexplained, still holding whatever truth the 20th century chose to disconnect rather than understand.